Hey everyone, welcome back to the Curator Shelf, and you are joining me on what is a very cold evening in Brussels. It was beautiful this morning, but it didn't last. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to jump straight in. So I said before, I think it was on Wednesday, that I'm going to do some workshops, like a mini series on kind of like working with the energy of Taurus and the new moon eclipse that's happening today, and then that will be followed up with some more kind of like workshops. Now, in order to just help kind of like put us all on the same page, I thought it'd be good just to go through kind of like what do I mean by this and what's required and what's expected and etc, etc. So without further ado, first and foremost, we're looking at Taurus. So we're looking at the energy of assets, property, wealth, and that's why it's a workshop on abundance, basically. Let me get some cards for you that will help just kind of like remind us of these kind of energies. Now, everything that I'm using, all the decks, I will link below. So anyway, here we go. So here's Taurus. Now this is my, I think it's Susan Shepherd Black Moon cards, heavily modded. But here's Taurus, and it's really they say I have, but you know, I really see it as a sign of kind of like ownership, which is mentioned here, second house. Here we go. Owning, and it's an earth element. It's also a fixed sign. And by the way we mean by fixed sign, it's because during the season of spring, it's kind of like right in the middle. It's not the first spring season, which is cardinal, and it's not the last, which is mutable. It's fixed, so it's in the middle, and so it has a very, very strong energy of that season. So we're looking at the season where we kind of like come into a space of growth, looking at what we have, how do we view it, and it's not just kind of like money. Everybody thinks money, but it's also our assets in terms of our property, our belongings, the physical items in the house kind of thing. It's also about land, and it's also about the physique, our bodies. So there's also a very strong Venusian energy to this. And so here we have Venus as well, the goddess of love, and she is ruling Taurus. So we have this planet, which really is a planet of brightness, of romance, more towards Libra when it comes to romance and partnerships. But in terms of Taurus, it really looks at our beauty and our aesthetics. So it's also an opportunity to look at our bodies. So that's a little bit of a recap on kind of like the main focus of this series. And just as a reminder, the cards that we're going to be looking at, which I'm going to go into soon, but in the major arcana, it's going to be the Empress, the Hierophant, and of course, well, in the minor arcana, it's going to be the 5, 6, 7 of Pentacles. And also in terms of the courts, I have really honed in on the Knight of Pentacles. But if you're more following a Thoth energy, you might want to work also with the King of Pentacles because they interlude. But there you go. So this is just a bit of a summary of kind of like, you know, the cards that we're going to be using and looking at. If you don't have astrology cards, that's fine. You don't need them. But for this activity, I would suggest having 2 tarot decks. I've already mentioned if you have something earthy, that's good because we're in an earth sign. But if you don't, or if you don't want to use one, that's fine too. But 2 tarot decks is optimal. Of course, it's all optional, you know, so don't feel pressured to go out and buy anything. And also, if you prefer that, no, I want to use a tarot and oracle, I want to use 2 oracles, go with that. The most important thing is going to be that can you actually see the energies that we're going to be looking and focusing on within those cards. I think that's more important in a way. But I'm going to be showing you cards from the traditional tarot decks. So just to kind of like keep it all standard in motion, basically. And then finally, we're going to be spanning over 3 to 4 weeks. And the reason is because we're going to be seeing this new moon energy pan out over the month. The interesting thing is, if you're really interested and you like this and you enjoy this, as you do the activity, one thing to know is because we have a new moon eclipse, and the eclipse is partial solar eclipse in Taurus, we actually have, it's kind of like correspondence happening on the 25th of October in Scorpio. It's going to be a partial solar eclipse in Scorpio on the 25th of October. So if you're really interested, what's happening now, you may see some of that again come up in October. And that's really the interesting part of the eclipses that are happening right now, because they kind of like have a dynamic going. Also, if you're not into astrology, that's fine too. Just work with the cards. If you're more into astrology and you even know how to do the placements of your chart in the cards and so forth, go with it. So, you know, also if you're someone that's very well versed in astrology, then you'll know also how to maneuver around the houses according to where they're sitting within your chart, basically where Taurus is within your chart and where Venus is within your chart. So I'm kind of like just going with this in more of a general phase, trying not to too complicate it and complicate it too much, and just kind of like going with the flow of it. But as I said before, really just the main focus is assets and property and our bodies and the material side of things and all that second house good stuff. I'm just checking my notes here. The other thing is, like, you know, so the aim is, and one of the things I was thinking about was, you know, really just to help explain the aim of this would be to just connecting with our higher self. That's what I would say on this topic. So higher self, spirit guides, the earth, however you want to put it. If you're an atheist, also just kind of like adapt it towards whatever your own connection is with the energies or with yourself. Because I'm really not here to promote anything very specific. It's just more about reflection and contemplation, actually. So that's it. And, you know, go with the flow, take things as they come. So if there's something doesn't resonate, you don't have, you know, don't do it, basically. If it does, or if you need to adapt it and change it into whatever fits your bill, that's great too. Okay, so now that I've explained kind of like, you know, the frame of this, I thought I would go through, and I've already given us a bit of an overview of Taurus with the rulership of Venus. I thought it'd be good first and foremost to go through kind of like working with some of our cards. So for this activity, I would encourage, let me just pick up our cards here, I've got so much here going on. I would encourage, if you do have a lunar deck, to get out to move, sorry, the new moon beginnings card. And the reason is because this is really a good focal point to have on your desk as you work through it. So to have this close when you're journaling, if you do have space to leave your cards laying out, maybe in your personal space, or, you know, if you feel comfortable having them laid out, I think it's always helpful. I'm going to put these on my altar space, so that way they're always handy. When I'm walking past it, I can just have a look. And then I can grab them when I'm journaling, basically. But for this week, for today, and then for the following 7 to 8 days, the next video will be on Saturday, by the way. This card will be really, really helpful, or something with a new moon energy. If you don't have a lunar deck, I was thinking about this, feel free to just Google it, you know, and get something from the internet that works for you. So yeah, so there's always room to just adapt it to yourself. So that's one thing. And the other thing is if you do have a lunar deck, the cards that are helpful for this are waxing crescent. So I know I don't have the Yasmin Ballon Moonology decks. I think they're gorgeous, and I think I need to get them actually. But if you have waxing crescent 1, 2, 3, which is basically like realization. Now this is the Stacey DeMarco deck that I've got here, the cards from there. She's written in here acceptance, but I think what's really meant by here is that we can't look towards something that we're going towards if we're not accepting what's already happened. So acceptance is actually the point of departure in this sense. And then finally, the other aspect of this that we're working on is kind of like growth. So the whole new moon energy is about beginnings. So in this instance, for the coming week, what would be helpful maybe to do is first and foremost be ready to answer some journaling prompts, and they're going to be around the cards that we're going to be using. So the cards, now going into the ones specific for the coming week and for this whole month actually, is first and foremost the Five of Pentacles. So the Five of Pentacles, and I've kind of like taken out the Waite Smith original here, but here's Anna Kay, very similar, and then here's one from the Green Witch Tarot by Anna Mora. And what I would suggest doing at this point is, because we're going to be looking at growth, and you might be thinking, okay, so where do I begin with this, is to take your deck and the Five of Pentacles you've picked, or one or two that you prefer, however, and really sit with the card, and without going into a guidebook or anything else, is to note what comes out and jumps out at you. So for example, on this Five of Pentacles, what always jumps out at me is actually kind of like a very, this circle. I know it's a circle of people and there's a warm fire, but it very strangely reminds me of Stonehenge. So you know, what would jump out to me is a gathering of people and spiritual, and she's not part of it. And so I would actually just make notes of that. It's up to you if you want to write like a 5 paragraphs or 3 bullet points, and that's it. You know, just again, go with the timing that you have. But I would just like really look at the card and say what speaks out to you. Because we're looking at developing affirmations at the end of this exercise, by the way, we're looking at developing affirmations and goals. You know, so if I was looking at this, one of the goals that I would have for myself, or an affirmation is, you know, I am welcomed and I welcome others, or, you know, I am part of the society that I live within, something like this. So that would be kind of like a thought I would have. Or the other thought I would have in this sense is, you know, am I getting out enough? Am I meeting people enough? So for me, the Five of Pentacles at this moment has jumped out more as a community thing. But, you know, when I'm sitting and journaling, it could be something else. So just go with whatever you're feeling. In this one, when I look at this card and I look at the Five of Pentacles here, what I see is the beauty of that stained glass window and of the church. And at the same time, they're not there. They're not inside. They've hardly got a shelter and a home. And what would this make me think of is, you know, that do I need to look at the goal of finding peace with material wealth and not being so agitated towards it? Or am I looking at kind of like, you know, am I looking for shelter? Am I looking for a new home for myself? So I would start looking at kind of like what kind of like captures me, and then how would the growth situation be in that? What would be the kind of like antidote of what I want to work towards? And in this one, the classic Waite Smith, what's always jumped out to me with the Five of Pentacles, and it always makes me laugh, is this guy looks like Tiny Tim from Scrooge's Dickens's Christmas Carol. I really don't like that book. I like a lot of Dickens, but for some reason I don't like I like the story, but I don't like Dickens's actual book, A Christmas Carol, for some reason. I love his A Tale of Two Cities. But anyway, going back to this, whenever I see this, I always see him as Tiny Tim. And there's something about the Tiny Tim that always makes me feel of self-pity. So if I saw this, the first thing that always jumps out at me is self-pity, honestly speaking. And so I would ask myself, you know, am I feeling a little bit too sorry for myself? And therefore the growth in me when I look at this would be, you know, how can I have gratitude, and how can I appreciate that actually there are really good things going on in my life already? And that would be a goal for me. That would be an actual goal. And in terms of abundance, I've seen so many things happen when I start to appreciate a lot more. And I don't mean kind of like, you know, floods of money coming in, but I tend to use my money a lot wiser, to be quite honest with you. I tend to be a lot calmer around giving and receiving. So, you know, sometimes these things kind of really tap into emotional basis for me. And so this is one suggestion. So the other set of cards, because we're looking at that Taurian energy again, is the Six of Pentacles. Now, the story moves on, as we all know, with the Six of Pentacles. So let's again begin with the Greenwich Tarot. Now, here in the Greenwich Tarot, we can see, you know, this receiving, giving, and again, I would look at kind of like what jumps out at me, and straight away what jumped out at me was that beautiful bird. Now, with the Greenwich Tarot, the author Anamura did a really excellent job of giving a little bit of a background on the flora and the fauna in each card. So I would actually then go away and look up that bird and find out why did it stand out to me so much, you know, and I would develop like a growth mindset statement, an affirmation or a goal connected towards that. In this one, you know, with the Anna K, here when I see this giving and receiving, the first thing that jumps out at me is that baby strapped to her back. And so for me, what jumps out here is vulnerability. So have I got a vulnerability in giving and receiving wealth? And then quickly moving on, the last one, of course, is our Waite Smith. And this time what jumped out at me here when I just quickly looked at it was the bright red cloak. So for some reason the RWS today, the colors are really jumping out at me, and what jumps out at me here is this bright red cloak. And I had that same feeling with the stained glass window and the Tiny Tim kind of thing. So I need to look at this in terms of, am I looking at things in terms of riches when it comes to clothing and appearances? Is that how I see giving and receiving? So, you know, and then I would just kind of like jot down some thoughts on that and develop an affirmation or a goal which is linked to that. And then finally, moving swiftly on, I'm trying to keep this within a time frame, is the Seven of Pentacles. Now, the Seven of Pentacles is an interesting one. So here we have it from the Greenwich Tarot. And I've always seen this card as a little bit like a card of the seeds have been planted and we're waiting for them to come, but there's a nervousness of like, is it really going to work out? Like, I've put all this energy in, like, is anything happening? And when I look at this, the first thing that jumps out at me is, again, this plant, and then I think this is a swift moving in. I need to look it up, or is it, oh, I don't know what it is. I need to look it up again, but the plant really jumped out at me, that green fern. So I don't know if it's fern, sorry, it's lavender. I think it's lavender, I don't know what it is, but I would go and look that up. So obviously right now, for me, the Greenwich's flora and fauna are really coming to mind here. So yeah, and then, you know, I mean, you can see that he's got shellac, he's got like the varnish there. So this gentleman is really working hard to polish up those pentacles. But for me, the Seven Pentacles, there's also a bit of a despondency or a bit of a nervousness there. Let's go to the Anna K. So these are the pentacles coming out of the earth. I think that's absolutely gorgeous. And what struck me there was this bush at the back. And my first thoughts on this would be, you know, am I looking at the fact that there are actually leaves coming through? So something is happening, but he's not seeing that. He's just staring at the pentacles. He's waiting for them. So again, there's a certain nervous tension that I pick up. And then finally, when we look at this one, he looks a little bit downbeaten here. And I don't know, the first thing that struck me was actually his hands on that pole, as if like, you know, he's leaning on the pole for dear life, like, come on. So anyway, these are my initial thoughts. And as I mentioned again, the purpose of week one, because it's new beginnings, is whatever strikes me to develop an affirmation which would meet the, which would help address the issue. So in this one, if I was going back to it, you know, an example of an affirmation I can make for myself is, I affirm, you know, that the seeds that I've planted are always growing, you know, that new beginnings are always happening with everything that I've worked on, that, you know, that I'm always reaping the rewards. And of course, as many of you probably know by now, because affirmations are so famous now these days, but I would always keep it in the present tense. So taking a pause there. If you're someone that is not into affirmations, that's fine too. I would then focus on the goal setting. So the goal setting here would be that, you know, I am looking to be at peace with the work that I'm doing and trust that it is bearing fruit, you know, and it's slightly affirmation-ish, but it's more goal kind of like also that I want to be at a point where I'm not worried about every single action I take and whether or not it's going to bring in what I need. So again, it's really making it about, you know, what am I striving towards? That's the point I was trying to get at. So these are some of the thoughts around using the 5, 6, and 7 of Pentacles. Then we have, let me just get this right. Another card actually that I picked up, and I think I should show it to you, is I think it's always good to go to the bare bone of the suit. And so I also picked out the Ace of Pentacles because I absolutely love them. So, you know, in the Greenwich, I'm seeing kind of like all these sheep. I'm seeing kind of like peace. I'm seeing tranquility. I'm seeing calm. I'm seeing wealth as well, actually. You know, with sheep come that abundance of the livestock. If I had the Anna K, I would see here this young lady looking very content. I love the Anna K. It's such a calm deck. It's a very calm deck. And so I would see a lady that's feeling very calm, you know, and she's planted her seeds, you know, she knows things are going to happen. And then, of course, we have the classic rider Waite Smith, and we have that giant hand coming in. I'm not a huge fan of the hand, to be quite honest with you. But at this moment, I'm looking at that gateway, you know, that the Ace of Pentacles shows me this is the way through. Like, we are about to enter a new zone. So again, you know, it might be helpful also to pick up the seed of the suit and do some thinking around that. Feel free as well that as you're doing that to pick up your, if you are using astrology cards, I mean, again, you know, these are astrology cards, that to use them. Now, I personally don't use, by the way, I have to say, I don't use astrology cards because I just go into the astrology. That's just who I am. But I found for this activity, I thought, oh, I get to use them. So I think what I'm going to be doing also is I'm going to have these cards handy at my altar. So if I want to mix and match some of these cards, maybe Ace of Pentacles, maybe the Five of Pentacles, whatever, and just take a few that really jumped out at me when I was initially looking at my, you know, whatever set you've picked, whichever, decks you're using. It's good kind of also to think that, you know, am I seeing some kind of a correlation between this? So, you know, am I seeing the issue of, let's find, here, look at stability. So here we have Earth and we have stability. And let's take, for example, let me just find a card that I can talk to. Right, here's one. So here is the Six of Pentacles from the Green Witch. Perhaps I need to sit down, if these two are really striking me, and look at kind of like how, if I allowed more flow of giving and receiving, I'd have more stability in my life. That actually by holding on and not doing so much giving and receiving, I'm creating instability. And perhaps those are the issues that I need to look at. So it's just an example also of how I try and combine things. But again, it's up to you. And finally, before we move swiftly on, before I forget, I just wanted to show, so I just want to make sure I put all these, I also wanted to show you the quartz and how they can help actually on this exercise. So here we have the Knight of Pentacles. Now, I love the fact that the Knight of Pentacles in the Green, which is the lady, but you know, the energy is of slow, meticulous, of calm. And you know, this is the classic RWS. I mean, that pentacle and just the whole pose, very different, I think, for me from the Knight of Cups and from that charging horse of the wands, and you know, all of these charging horses and running horses and galloping horses and horses that look really depressed because, you know, the Knight of Cups always is very scorpionic, dark. This one always reminds me of slow, meticulous, planned, prepared, that kind of thing. So I might want to use this, and the other one, of course, also I've already mentioned them, but let's go to the ruler, of what we use in our major arcana. So let me go on to that now. So we traditionally have the Hierophant. So I'm not going to go through the whole exercise again, but now you get the meaning of how to just, you know, how I would be looking at the cards. The Hierophant for me has always been tradition, education, a gateway. You know, they see themselves as the gateway to spirit, but it's also for me conformity and structures. They slightly remind me of the Emperor, but from a different viewpoint. And you know, it's schooling, it's following, towing the line kind of thing. And so for me, I'd look at kind of like how I relate this to the Taurian aspects that I need to look at. You know, is higher education on the cards for me? Do I need to? I've got Stonehenge on my mind. He's in Stonehenge now. So maybe I need to look at kind of like, you know, real old school Druid traditions. I've already actually had a sign about that earlier today, actually, to be a bit more homecoming, and I tap into the Druid energy quite a bit sometimes. It's not my classic, but I've known of the Druids since I was a child. Of course, growing up in England, you know of Druids, but there's something about that presence all in the land that just, yeah, it's kind of like it comes out of the land. So yeah, so something in this has just reminded me that perhaps I need to pay attention to that. And then, you know, in terms of the Empress energy, I know everybody goes, oh God, not the pregnant woman again. Here we have her very pregnant indeed. What I would see in terms of the Empress energy for this one is being a vessel for ideas, holding that space for new stuff coming through, which is asset, abundance, prosperity oriented. So how do I hold that space? How do I nurture it, grow it, and feed it? And that's what I have when sometimes I see the Empress, rather than just a child. I see it more kind of like feeding a really great idea well, and having, you know, in a little bit when it comes to the Seven of Pentacles, you know, that waiting game, of, you know, seeing, you know, is it going to happen or not? So anyway, these were my thoughts on doing this. Sorry. So on doing this exercise, what I would suggest, and let me look at my notes again here, is my thoughts are always affirmations. If you're going to do them in the present tense, because otherwise we will be affirming something we may not want. One. Two is, if there are goals, I personally would make them as specific as possible. And on this exercise, my personal experience has been, and working also with sometimes with other people, is to actually just have one or maximum two goals, not more, because otherwise it can become so overwhelming. So I personally would always pick something that I really do want to focus on. And it's not about fixing it, but it's about giving it that space and that room and shining the spotlight on it. And I think that's a really good way to summarize this, because we're in a new moon and it's a solar eclipse. You know, eclipses are really about shining a light on something. It's about, sometimes it's a catalyst. So for me, this is an opportunity to look at something that might be really bothering me, or might be something that isn't so much bothering me, but I haven't really looked at it or focused on it. And I've kind of like been shoving it to the side, like a project or something, going, oh, I'll do it another time. Or, you know, the Creative Chef was born like 5 years after I'd been thinking about it. That's how long it took. You know, but these are really good examples of like sometimes delaying something. And this might be a moment for, if you're interested, for you to open up that kind of like space of possibility. And, you know, and to remind oneself again as well that in October, we have the other side of this eclipse going on, where we have the partial solar eclipse in Scorpio. So in a way, there is the opportunity to start something now, let the summer happen, let us go into autumn, and then, you know, towards Samhain, you know, seeing where those seeds of that topic and that area are, you know, if that appeals to you. And again, because we're looking at a new moon, and we're looking at the next few days going into next week, because a week from now will be the next episode. So yeah, I think it's going to be Saturday the 8th. No, Saturday the 7th. It's a week from now, basically, because I'll be doing it for the first quarter, basically. So we are looking at energies of growth, and we are looking at kind of like realization or materialization, and accepting what's happened so that there's a way to move forward. And next week's episode will be a little bit more kind of like on kind of like questions to ask. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. The questions that I would set myself if I was journaling, and I would encourage doing journaling just even 10 minutes every day, or noting down something for 10-15 minutes every day, is the questions I'm going to ask myself are what strikes me in some of the cards while I pick them up, narrowing it down to one thing that I want to focus on. So what was interesting there was that the Druid energy for me came back twice. You know, keep seeing Stonehenge, which is really strange. So I would narrow it down to one or two things that are really striking me. For some reason today, I really wanted to take out the Ace of Pentacles for this exercise. So even for me, already I know that some of the cards that I need to work with. And then asking myself, you know, what is the new beginning in this area of my life if I want to do it? So I have no idea if this is going to turn into a Druid project, or the cards are telling me I need to go home for a little bit, back to the UK for a little bit. I don't know what the cards are telling me in that sense, but I would really give that space and allow myself to ponder over it. As usual, I would really, really encourage not to be hard on yourself in any way. Just see this as something that's uncovering. You know, make sure that there's an energy cleanse going on when you're reading for yourself and pulling cards for yourself, even just a beautiful light around yourself. You know, ensure that you're grounded. That's what I would always encourage everybody. Ground yourself, take time out in nature, put the right foods into you, that kind of thing, because when we work with ourselves, and if we're looking at something that might be painful even, it's good just to make sure that we're doing all the right things around it so that we don't add stress or not leave ourselves in a safe space, right? So those are the things I would do for myself as well. So hopefully 30 minutes in, I will be doing chapters for this and cutting it up, but hopefully this has been helpful to you. And thank you if you're joining me on this. Thank you if you're just inquisitive and you've watched this whole video. And I wish you a lot of light and serenity for the coming week. And I will be doing a midweek pop-up, so you'll see me midweek anyway. But have a lovely weekend and take care now. Bye.